Hello, how are you? Hello everyone, how are you doing? Hope y'all are well. Hope everything is sounding all right. Hope we have the sound levels where they should be and that you're all... I did get a haircut, that is correct. Hope you all are well, and again I hope the sound levels are acceptable and that you can all hear me and see my beautiful face and everything. So by popular request, I'm going to play some Boats of Skye today before we head into the more serious Haven stuff. Boats are derpy little fellas who sail about trading shekels with one another and splashing waves. When boats have enough shekels, they buy things such as new boats, balloons, or basketballs. That sounds fair to me. So it's really warm here in Sweden the past couple of, I don't know, days, weeks, whatever. For all of you playing the bingo, waves are crisp as crystal and prey cannibalistically on their own. All kinds of nonsense rise from waves. Cowabunga. And it's really warm in Sweden, so it's been like some sort of record over the past couple of I don't know, days, weeks. It's been like 30+ degrees, that is Celsius for all you Ameritards out there. And it's really warm, especially for being May. Only May. It feels more like July. So it's really awesome. Of course, it's been a long, cold winter, so it's glad to see that that we're in a more summery mood right now. It feels awesome. I've been going to the beach every day almost. Shekel. When boats go bump in the night, the shekels fly like godly sparks from their maritime anvil. Shekels are cash and are useful for all kinds of hustling. It's good to know. So we'll place some shekels. So in case you're wondering what kind of strange acid trip we're on here, this is of course the Boats Dance. Boats of Skye, which was a program I wrote, a game I built. It's more like a playable screensaver than an actual game, and I built it during like the latter half of 2016. Released it to public acclaim on 1st of April 2017, which is now a little over a year ago. And this was really my first attempt at actually finishing a programming project of my own. Haven is more, LoftArt does all the heavy coding for this. It's obviously somewhat more proficient at that than I am. So the idea behind Boats of Skye was really to build, for reasons unclear, boats sometimes buy these basketballs. They bounce and sometimes pop on glass shards. Yeah, of all the scary things in Skye, monsters are the worst. They eat boats and scatter their shekels to the 7 waves. Monsters balloon for a while after eating a boat. Cowabunga. And red balloon, these crimson men of war rise lighter than ever through the sky, a rockin' and a poppin' all the way. Got a chicken ship. So it was really an attempt at building more of like a playable screensaver. So it's basically a huge nonsensical simulation which creates all kinds of silly objects and items which dance around in the ether of Skye, which is the world we are currently looking at. And I'm going to play this until the first boss, which is Old Dirty Moneybag, which is the first boss in Boats of Skye. But this was a really fun project. I learned a hell of a lot. For example, did you know that pointer dereferencing is a very expensive operation? I didn't know that. suppose it's kind of 101, but I learned that the hard way. One of the objects that I had here, it's a fairly well-tested game, I have to say. I mean, I've been, you know, obviously this is a simulation and it aims to kind of always run at 100% CPU speed. The game is all, you know, going to continue to add objects and just keep expanding until you run out of CPU processing power, until it can't run any more objects. So the game just keeps growing until it can't grow anymore. And so it's fairly well tested. I mean, all of these interactions that you see before you, all these little silly atoms that bounce against each other, they've been doing that 1,000,000 times over since I've been, you know, when I was working actively on this, I, you know, used to leave the game on overnight, you know, come back, have a good fresh crash to start working with in the morning. So certainly learned a whole lot, and I do have to say, like, it's fairly, like, I'm not going to hype it too much because obviously it's kind of primitivistic. It is said that in the beginning, when Skye was young, did the wise creator of all things place in it the moon scribe to charter the clouds of transient skies and keep ever watchful of its proceedings. The moon scribe was placed first in order to tell of the fate of Prince Charlie and of the puttymen who were given to save him and of all of their deeds. Ah, greetings, great spirit. 'Tis I, the moon scribe. I track and tabulate all proceedings of Skye, and send you little informative notes like this one about what's going on and off. I try to hang out somewhere around the center of things, but they can get messy. So, if you have questions about Haven, you know, feel free to ask them, and I'll answer them. We're not really doing much other than hanging out here. Yeah, so I'm not going to hype it too much. It's obviously a primitivistic game, and it was intended to be. But I do have to say that I'm kind of happy still with, you know, some level of the what shall we say, craftsmanship of it. It's fairly bug-free. Like, obviously, I haven't. You know, I'm sure there are things that I haven't tried, but not that many bugs in it that I know of. I've fixed the ones that I know of. Things are going great, but we must begin preparing for Prince Charlie's arrival. You have received your first quest. Click the blue flower to find out more. Whoop whoop. I shall. In order to serve and protect Skye and to deliver Prince Charlie from otherwise impending nuisance, we'll need weapons. As a puttyman acquired... as a puttyman? But who in the blazes are these puttymen, long foretold as saviors of Skye and Prince Charlie? Indeed, who are they? We need to acquire 10 shekels. Here they are, Cowabunga. We'll go to them. Here we got our first puttymen. And so... oh, there's just so much things going on. There's so many things going on. So, another flower. Awesome. You get a ton of notifications early on here. So, basically there are 3 game modes to this game. One is the kind of Great Spirit game mode, where you can just place objects and kind of watch them interact in all their physicality. You can, you know, drop 1,000,000 basketballs and watch them bounce around. And that was inspired by a game called, I don't know if you've played it, but it was a classic old game called The Incredible Machine that I played a lot when I was younger and had a lot of fun with. And the basic premise of The Incredible Machine was basically this. I mean, you could set up little physicality experiments. You had a physics simulator of sorts, primitive though it was, where, you know, you could build kind of strange little Rube Goldberg machines with, you know, moving like a bowling ball hitting a paper plane which flies over and activates a fan which blows a ball into a cup, blah 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 blah, that kind of thing. And it was a lot of fun. And, you know, one game mode there was like the puzzle game mode, where you had to solve various puzzles using a limited set of you know, pieces. And another was the freeform building mode, where you could just basically build nonsense to your heart's content. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that game. So when I built this, I had something vaguely similar in mind. So as I said, one part The Incredible Machine, one part playable screensaver, and one part just Liero, if you remember that game. It was a kind of a Worms clone, but in real time. Had very similar controls to Boats in the Puttyman mode here. with a little hint of RPG splashed into it in that I added a storyline and a quest system. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I had a lot of fun building it. It was, you know, very informative. You know, learned a lot. The game is written in C, and using SDL, Simple Direct Media Layer, I think it stands for. Not sure how they get the M in there, but I think it's in there somewhere, somehow. A hard night and 2 hits of acid later, you find yourself obsessed with the strange emanations of a mysterious numbers station broadcasting on some forlorn frequency. And so yeah, written in C using SDL for, you know, media stuff like sound and imaging, images, rendering, that kind of nonsense. Had a really managed to create a kind of a nice build pipe for this game, in that I could compile it on my Linux computer, my Debian computer. I could compile it for Windows on a Debian computer, so I only really had to test it actively on Windows. I mean, I didn't have to compile in a Windows environment or anything. I could just create a Windows exe file on Linux and then just move that over to Windows, and imagine my shock, you know, the first time I tried that and that actually ran. I was like, obviously crashed it like a minute later because of some, you know, peculiar bug. Like, one of the things that was hard about that, I can definitely recommend, if you're trying to build a game, I could definitely recommend that process, since programming in Linux is a lot less of a toothache experience than it is programming and, you know, attempting to do anything mildly advanced in Windows. But so I can certainly recommend it. The only thing that was kind of difficult about it, or the only like major challenge I had, was that it was very hard to get like any sort of stack trace out, or, you know, memory dump or anything from the Windows environment. Managed to create something which could, you know, give a hint at least to, I think, what function caused the problem in the event of a crash. But it was a bit of a setup. It took a great deal of doing to get something better than that, I think. Not sure I remember exactly why, but I mean, it was like the symbols tables and the programs were different and blah blah blah, so it would have required a fair bit of hacking to get something better out of that. So if I were building something more advanced, I would probably look into to getting like, I don't know, the ability to read memory dumps or something from Windows. Because one of the things that was really hard about it was that I basically had to, you know, compile on Linux, move over to Windows, you know, just add a bunch of printouts that I could then use to kind of, you know, try to get some inkling of an idea as to what went wrong. You know, how far did the program get before it crashed. Which was... Zunzon asks, will you stream H&H today? Yes, I will. We're just going to get to the first boss. How can you not see the awesomeness of Boats? So I can really, but otherwise, other than that, I can really recommend it. It was very, another one of the challenges I managed to complete with, it's funny, fun story, true story. Look at the boats. You will see that the icon for the boats is actually the Kinara icon from Halo. It was the first thing I added to this game, and I just stole the icon from Halo, since I already had it drawn. Add bits to Twitch settings. What are bits? Please inform me as to what bits are. I am not familiar with, I'm not an advanced Twitch user yet, but I certainly hope to be. Decoded signals cross-referenced from 2 different number stations have led you to the location of a secret underground military base. Score. 2 subversive organizations in action have messed up during a recent transformation and left a piece of the puzzle lying in the open. Cowabunga. Mysterious chemtrails have appeared in the skies above a local military base. What manner of awful steam are they spraying? Steamboat of Skye. The age of sail draws to a close for this boat as it sails straight through a head of strange aerosol-sprayed steam to come out the other side a steamboat. You suppose it's an improvement, but hasn't it lost some of its charm? Yeah, another one of the things that I managed to accomplish in building this game was that I managed to create a one-file deployable exe file which contained all the resources and everything for the game, all the code, everything, unpacked it with, you know, basically a little launcher exe file, which then unpacked the actual game as a DLL, ran that, and you know, unpacked the resources, blah 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 blah. I really wanted it to be just one exe file, and I managed to do that. So I was very happy with myself. Felt like an accomplishment. And I had several moments like that when I built this game. It was like really the first time I completed something, you know, moderately advanced. You know, if you're considering like getting into game development, or especially the programming side of it, I suppose, there are definitely certain tasks that are you know, more recurring, shall we say, than others. And one of the challenges I had with this game was, of course, the hit testing, which is always, when you don't know what you're doing, when you haven't done it before, it's always, I mean, if I did the hit testing for boats now, I would, you know, approach it in a completely different manner. But this basically only uses axis-aligned bounding boxes for all the objects, and were I to do it today, I would probably use polygons at the very least, so that I could have, like, you know, mildly round bounding boxes for the basketballs and such. Oh, neato. So the first weapon you get is the jelly bean gun. You shoot jelly beans, and we have been tasked with killing 5 monsters. Let's see if we can do that. The best trick I find is to land on top of them and shoot them. But yeah, the hit testing was it was an interesting challenge. It was the first time I did it, and you know, made so many mistakes. Like, one of the first things I did was, basically I had to find the first hit as an object moves through the space of the game. I wanted to find the first hit, not just any hit. So basically I had to gather all the hits and sort them in order of you know, occurrence when they happen in time. And I did that using a linked list, which to me now seems, call it naive, seems an understatement. Given that linked lists are, I'm not sure I can see, you know, any good use of a linked list at all. I think you should just basically always use an array. So that's a tip from me. Let's see, what was the affiliate? What's an affiliate? Jorb needs to stream a tad bit more to become one. How often do you need to stream to become an affiliate? What are the perks of affiliate? So in case it wasn't obvious, one of the things that happens here is that when objects collide, they have various interactions with each other and transform in various ways. Like, for example, here 2 ducks have taped together and the result is predictably a duct tape. And so basically the simulation evolves. You know, another inspiration for this was kind of, you know, I don't know if you've read about a Daisy World simulator ever. A Daisy World simulator is, you know, essentially, I don't know what to call it, a game of life, a simulation of a planet with, you know, black and white daisies, and it's basically founded in a thought experiment of sorts, aiming to illustrate, you know, how the emergent order of the planet will, of the biosphere, or the biosystems on the planet will kind of work to harmoniously regulate the temperature of the planet, and, you know, also demonstrate how, I don't know, increasing biological diversity on the planet. You know, you can expand on the simulation by adding wolves and foxes and whatnot, and how that basically increases the stability of the system. think is the point. And so that was, you know, one of the things that I was kind of inspired by when building this game as well. It's one of the things I was thinking about at least. There we go, killed 5 monsters. What do we need to do now? Prince Charlie is delighted. Oops, sorry. Delighted, he says, that you've slain so many of the vicious greeny meanies. But where is he? We shall have to undertake a thorough investigation of the matter and try to locate him. In order, investigate the following targets by landing on them. Planet, number station, underground military base. Let's see if we can do that. So, Gandicus says, if you're an affiliate, people can give you like $2.50 a month, and people can give you bits. So bits are money of sorts, I gather. That is excellent. Maybe I should do that. How often do I need to stream in order to get my $2.5 that people apparently can give me? New type, Molotov cocktail. This incendiary late night special, best served cold, can light up any party. Postbox fix when? Asks Gandicus. The complaint was that it was too small. We implemented a postbox in Haven in the last patch. So, and the complaint was that it was too small. I don't know, how soon do you need it? Is it important? How did you find the patch otherwise? Or how did you like the farming change? I mean, I know there are some problems with it right now, but in theory, how did you like it in theory? And, you know, the theoretical best implementation of the idea, how did you like that? I thought it was a pretty neat idea. There's so much nonsense in Skye that the atoms of Silly have begun bouncing hard against the fabric of reality itself. Skye has begun growing at the seams. So another thing that you can notice is that, wow, is that one of the awesome things here is that the more objects we get in the sky, the crazier the background is going to get in terms of LSD trippiness. What are we looking for? We're looking for a planet. If you see a planet, please give me a shout out. Yeah, and another thing I did, you know, how I learned that array or pointer dereferencing was an expensive operation was when I had an array of pointers, which basically meant that I did at least one. It was like a double layered array, so I did at least one dereferencing unnecessarily of sorts. It was I'd only done it that way. No, it turned into a wharf. Planetary. Rich boats that collide with a planet will become a wharf. Boats obviously eat shekels when they create shekels when they bounce into other boats, and then if they hit a planet, they turn into wharfs. Two wharves that collide become a wharf, as in the Star Trek character wharf. Give me a shout out if you've seen the planets. Let's see, Streaky Haddock. That's a great name, by the way. Hey, are there any plans to introduce more underground trees, plants, terrains, etc. to make it more interesting? I like the idea of being an underground nature druid huffing opium in some glittering oasis surrounded by stone. I can totally support your vision. Obviously, that would require a world reset since it pertains to the map generator, but, you know, if and when that happens, you know, definitely happening. It's definitely on my to-do list to expand on the underground. As I've mentioned before, I have an ongoing project that I think of as the militarization of the underworld. Basically, I want more enemies down there, more, you know, cave-dwelling things, blah blah blah. Fortunately, since this is boats, we can just cheat and place as many planets as we want. Gandicus, underground viable hydroponics for increasing quality instead of big farms. I don't know about that, but yeah, I could definitely see at least, you know, at least a hint of Dwarf Fortress in, you know, introducing one or two underground crops like, you know, what are they called in Dwarf Fortress? Cave wheat and plump helmets, I think, or plump helms. I don't remember, but you can make wine from them at least. Something like that, I think, could be acceptable. What are we looking for now? I think it's a wondrous news. 2 bloated monsters have fused into a bowl of royal green marmalade. These now confectionery one-time agents of global subversion promote the cause of just and lawful monarchy everywhere. There we are. We're on military base, but I think I'm supposed to land on a number station. Oh, there we go, number station. And see. Richard asks, do you guys plan on any map gen changes before World 11? Anything you weren't satisfied with this world? As usual, you know, the map generator is better than it ever has been, and I think that's probably been true for every world reset. I mean, obviously, you know, a world reset is a fairly unique opportunity for us. Kill 5 balloon animals, chicken ships, steamboats. Okay, balloon animals first then. We're balloon animal hunting, boys. And so it's a fairly unique opportunity for us to actually change things, and you know, we certainly try to take the opportunity when we do make world resets to, you know, use that opportunity wisely and make as many, you know, qualitative changes to things that cannot otherwise be changed. That is, for example, the reason like we won't take time for a world reset usually to implement like new animals, because new animals can be added, you know, progressively as the world develops. What we try to focus on are, you know, things that are hard or impossible or difficult to change outside of a world reset. So, for example, fundamental issues of balance would be addressed with a world reset, and you know, the map generator is obviously, you know, one of the big things that we try to work on. You know, the working on the map generator, I would argue, is the prime reason we do world resets. So we would definitely, you know, work on it. I think, you know, I have a lot of thoughts on it. I would like, one of the things I would like to see are more filamentary structures, is the term we've used when we've discussed it. Basically, I would like, because right now there is a tendency for trees in Haven to be kind of clumped, to be just, you know, a random, you know, kind of vomit of trees. I would like there to be more structure, more of a structure to them. So more of a, you know, I don't know what to call it, like a smoothed noise wave, or a, you know, again, a filamentary structure where the trees actually, you know, have, you know, some structure, some distinction, some, you know, meaning to their placement. Like, rarely in nature do you see like total chaos, you know, absolute war of the ants kind of. Where did that steamboat boat go? Rarely in nature do you see that kind of vomit random. You know, usually things have significantly more structure, and that's one of the things that make it believable as, you know, a simulation or whatever you want to call it. And so that's one of the things I would like to see. That's kind of a big deal. Like, or, you know, anything can be as big or as small a deal as you would like to make it. But then, and you know, the same thing I think goes for the map. I think the map could benefit, you know, more from, you know, more meaning to it, shall we say, just less meaningless noise in the map, and more like, you know, structures and, you know, mountains and distinct edges between terrains and things of that nature that you would, again, observe in actual nature. I think probably have better luck if we use a Molotov cocktail. Molotov is a pretty cool weapon. Pretty efficient, I think, for tasks like this. It does a lot of damage when hit things. Let's see. For Sirius, always wanted to ask: do you fear do world reset because it will ruin CF economics that also provide token turnover? No, not at all. That is not a consideration for us at all. I mean, the world reset is an economic boon to us. Like every time we do a world reset, we get a resurgence of interest in the game, which means that people come in and, you know, unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. So the world reset is an economic boon to us. That's not an economic negative. Holding off on it is economically negative. But we don't want to, like, it's also the thing, like, if we do a world reset every 6 months, then that's going to get old really fast. So we want to be extremely conservative and, you know, do it when it's right for us and when it's right for everyone, for the game and blah, blah, blah. So there's no rush on our part to do a world reset right now, or basically ever. We just, you know, it's a, you know, regardless of when and how you do it, it's going to be a controversial thing to some extent. Okay, we're just gonna cheat because this is boats. No rules apply. Let's see, there we go. There was one right here actually. There we go. Let's see. Jordan Colsey asks, can mined cave galleys have a chance of uncovering hidden rooms with ancient items, thrones, chests, gems, etc.? Absolutely. I would not mind that at all. It's, you know, popping things when mining is a fun mechanic, I find. So I would love that. Like, you know, trolls or really anything. So I think that's a great idea, and we could play dungeons that way. We could play. Now we need to bring 5 pieces of the puzzle to the moon scribe. Let's do that. We're almost at the boss now, I think. Ganica says, it's been 30 minutes and give us haven. If you're not careful, we'll play boats all night. Sir. Yeah, I think I answered. Though, Hoylander asks, do you have any changes to hunting in the pipe? Perhaps changing the ratios of animals to meat, rarer animals with more meat, for example. Introducing traps, making hunting with a bow more viable. Well, the bow is a constant child of sorrow, I find. It's very hard to balance the bow properly, you know, relative to PvE, PvP. Usually, I think it's been the case that it's either been completely broken or not, you know, dealt any meaningful damage whatsoever. So we should certainly look at it. But I'm not sure I have any concrete plans. Changes to hunting, not like any ideas really that I think of as changes to hunting per se. I don't know, is there anything in particular you'd like to see? I think hunting more works mildly fine, but I'm sure that you can always improve on anything. Richard says, I personally want to see hunting to be an exclusively marksmanship-driven activity. Of course it's him. This old plutocrat is all about the Benjamin and has his usurious fingers in the pockets of boats everywhere. And if you ever find him, if you ever need to find him, all you have to do is follow the money. They say that money doesn't smell, but this guy reeks. Old dirty moneybag has dropped a fat flaming bag of red-hot money mixed in with shards of bad debt and non-performing loans, and I'd recommend steering well clear before this entire shady financial instrument blows up in someone's face. Jordan Cozy says, I would like to see traps added. Not even gonna make a joke. We've talked about traps before. I think it still has kind of the same problems that we've talked about before, and that it's kind of hard to meaningfully define what a trap is. Is it just like a passive item or object in the world which, you know, suddenly spawns a trapped animal? or you know, every once in a while when it loads, checks it to find out, checks if it's trapped an animal. You know, we could do that. I'm not sure how interesting it is. Is it, on the other hand, an object which, you know, actually, you know, counts on you actually leading an animal into it, but physically? I don't know, that kind of seems a little bit gamey, and, you know, you got him. Old Moneybag is out of commission, and you've got a new quest. Old Dirty Moneybags' ruthless high-finance empire all started here, and peddling smut to the innocent from a sleazy sex shop. His defeat has reduced him back to his first black kernel of vice and fornication. But let it serve as a reminder that the fall and carnalities of man will always leave an orifice open to the devil. Oh, blushing, it is quite the power tool that fell out of a sleazy sex shop passing through. Perhaps this wicked thing can be put to good use. There we go! We completed the first boss quest. For Boats of Skye. So that was Boats of Skye. You can check it out at boatsofskye.com if you want to play it yourselves. So, with that out of the way, let's move over to Haven. Good night, boys. So yeah, in case I didn't show you, you can obviously play, you know, against a friend as well. You can kind of fight with each other. Awesome game. Here we go. Character from last time. Boom, 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 doing it. Haven. So where were we? I think we're... Granger explicitly told me not to keep working on... Fumbling was his word. Stop fumbling with this character. He finds that I'm fumbling when I play the game. Can only protest these obvious lies. It's probably no accident that Granger is German. We will, of course, recall who started the World Wars. England. We all know it was England. Kidding. Hoylander says, I find that the current player progression concerning hunting is a bit rough, because it quickly goes from you becoming utterly destroyed by the animals to you murdering the animals without a second thought. That I can agree with. The reason I suggest more rare animals with more meat is because it would allow for more depth of the hunting mechanic. Chasing animals into traps, sneaking up on animals, hunting them. I agree that animals, generally, their AI could be a lot better. And that, I think, would probably add to the experience. I think, you know, a lot of the animals just stand still and allow you to walk up to them and do all kinds of things. I think they should interact with players more generally, or, you know, respond to player behaviors more. So when, for example, you approach an animal, the animal shouldn't just, you know, take that, so to speak. It should move away, or, you know, attempt to get out of your way, or attempt to do something, just anything other than just randomly standing there and doing nothing. So I think that's the, you know, you certainly have a point there. I also noticed on my actual and real character that I play that I have not spent a single point on stealth the entire game. Probably been a recurring pattern for several worlds. I'm not sure, is, like, when you guys PvP, is stealth relevant at all? Or is stealth relevant ever for anyone, for any purpose? Because if not, I think we should probably do something about that. And I could definitely see an application there in hunting, which obviously also opens up the more general question of stealth, you know, hard stealth potentially in game. Like, would it be fun if you could, like, say, hide, you know, effectively activating some sort of a cloak shield, like you could in most any other game? Ganka says stealth is never relevant. That was kind of what I figured. Ike Dragon says, Sayo to win says, I'm here for ERT monitor, actually. I think that's CRT monitor, and the CRT died several months ago. But, you know, a hard cloak shield of one form or another. Like, for example, I think one of the things that it's a bit, and, you know, I'm not sure how that would work. Like, would there just be a random roll? That's not that much fun either. How do you guys like the decay mechanic that we added for paving? It kind of sucks that it decays the actual roads that you've built. I'm not sure what to do about that. I didn't like that part. But other than that, like for basis, when I've been traveling around the world, you know, looking into old abandoned, you know, ruin diving as I do, one of my favorite activities in Haven, by the way. I found it to be, you know, really adding a bit of atmosphere to the place. It also kind of gives you an idea as to how long the place has been abandoned. So yeah, hard stealth could be a thing. Like one of the things, like in real life, when you're chasing another person through the forest or whatever, not that that, you know, happens to me every day, but you can usually kind of, you know, duck down into, you know, the undergrowth or the underbrush and kind of you know, hide, which you can't do that in Haven. And I've you know, been asking myself if that would be a fun mechanic. The stealth is kind of problematic in that, you know, it's not hard to see situations where it would just be completely overpowered and totally imbalanced, and, you know, especially if you tie it into character attributes where, you know, evil veteran players can just sneak up on nubs and be completely invisible and just then backstab people, stuff like that. But, so, you know, there's certainly balance issues to be considered. But, you know, if you give things hard enough penalties, I think, you know, you can probably make most things work. I'm fairly happy about, for example, how we nerfed horse combat. I think we did a pretty good job there. I think horse combat, you know, it was obviously completely overpowered when we first implemented horses. One of the reasons we ever held off on implementing horses, by the way, was precisely that. You know, in Legacy, Old Haven, but. But I think we did a good job there, and I think we did a good job in that we brought it to a place where you know, horses are not just useless shit, because, you know, you still move faster with them and, you know, you can use them, but in combat they are, you know, a liability, I figure. Yerpa Seastings says horses were OP IRL though. That's probably true. That's like arguably the most vicious army ever to sweep the world would be the Mongolian hordes. You know, light cavalry archers. My money is on light cavalry archers every day of the week. Every day of the week. Those beat anything. Except, I guess, maybe fortifications. Mongols were not, at least early on, were not huge on siege warfare. Though they got a lot better at it later. Mr. Softener says, turn on Haven ambient noises. See if should be on. But I do have to admit that I don't hear much. There we go. Harvesting the barley. Damn straight, Jordan calls the Your Tears Cup. Ike Dragon says, do you think inertia-based movement could be possible for boats and or horses? A more like, yeah, definitely. That would be an awesome thing. A more physical movement would be really cool. I think it would, you know, make them feel a lot better in how they operate, and that they wouldn't just stop on a dime. But at the same time, that puts a lot more stress, I think, on you know, the ping relative to the server, and it also makes several interactions that Haven kind of relies on, like the ability to, for example, to right-click on an object and have the character move up to it. You would have to replicate that with a boat that moves with, you know, along a more you know, pattern of physicality, and I don't know what that would entail, like building an AI for it. So there are definitely issues to be considered. We've talked a lot about it, and I think it's one of those things that could make movement generally feel a lot more fun, is if it felt more physical, if there was more physics to it. Right now it's just basically point and click, and, you know, feels a bit unnatural, I think. So if we could find a good way of doing that for Norris and horses and whatnot, I would be very open to it. I think it's a good idea as such. Jordan Cozy says, I say again, some traps would work like how fishing nets currently do, where you check every so often. The other could be active, where you place a trap on the ground and then you could lure an animal through it. But that introduces a distinction. Like are you saying there are two different types of traps then? We need to build a barrel. I mean, I'm not saying that Granger has a point and that I'm fumbling when I'm playing the game, but he may have a point and that I'm fumbling a lot. What's this? Oh, I haven't even updated my client. Goodness. Goodness. I'll have to do it. I hadn't even restarted the client since we added the last patch. Serves me right that I crash. Let's see, where we at? Where we at? I say this also because I find, says Hoylander, that hunting is definitely one of the aspects of the game which really turns a lot of players away from the game because of how awkward and initially confusing the melee combat system is. On top of it being counterintuitive, that hunting with a ranged weapon is almost exclusively weaker than melee. So I suggest looking at it to help coerce new players into sticking with the game. You have a point there, you know, point well taken. I think you make a lot of sense there. I agree that the melee system does feel unnecessarily perhaps complicated or whatever, or not intuitive enough. I think that was probably true for legacy combat as well. Obviously, the thing we're trying to accomplish with it is you know, a combat system which can actually have some element of actual, you know, personal skill involved in it. And in order to introduce that, we have to introduce distinction in the combat system, and in order to have distinctions, you know, we introduce concepts that need to be explained and blah blah blah. And so to some extent I kind of feel that it is a little bit what it is. If you want it to be skill based, there has to be things you can learn about it. If there are no things that you can learn about the game, then not sure how skill based it is. And if there are a lot of things that you can learn about something, then it may seem daunting at first. So there's certainly a good balance to be struck there. And I'm also not sure how good like payout we're getting for the complication that we've added. I think that was one of the things that we tried to address with the attempted rework that we did. Little John 531 asks, why the tilted headset? It's actually just, you know, a normal headset, but if I kind of feel bottled in if I don't have like one ear free. So I kind of want to be able to hear what goes on around me as well. So it's not more complicated than that. So I think one of the things I'd like to work towards is a study desk, and for that we need bone. So I think we're going to go on a little quest to find some bone. One of the things that I've been wanting to add is the ability to boil glue from, since glue is what literally holds Haven and Hearth together, is glue. I've been thinking that it would be neat if you could boil glue from hides as well, because I have a crap ton of hides. I think this is one of the things that Granger complains about when I'm fumbling and just placing things all over the place. There's no order to this place. We're going to improve. We're going to improve and do better, and we're going to do it for our good friend Granger. He shall not say in the future that we are fumblers. We shall not be fumblers ever again. All we shall strive to do is be well in Granger's eyes. Yeah, glue, rope, and leather, the holy trinity of Haven. Exactly. Then again, isn't one of the selling points of Haven that you can kind of just fumble around and have fun with that? Who knows? These are the questions we ask ourselves. Let's see, let's eat a little before we head out. With all the terrible food that we're eating here. Boom, there we go. And Ramsey says noob. I know, I am a noob. Shall not deny this. So yeah, we're going to try to build a study desk, and for that we need 18 pieces of bone, and we're going to go get that. And in the process, we're also going to head toward Willowline. If we find him, we can visit him, as we have a quest to do. Ask Kinshra Slaves asks, why do we not have the old cabin music 99 or cave? Good question, because I haven't basically looked at the sound or music since we released the game. So if the game ever took off, one of the things that we could basically, hire someone to do, or put, we could certainly make room for, or have use for, a person who worked dedicatedly with the sound of the game, because it's one of the things that tends to get overlooked. Adding sounds to stuff adds a fair bit of work to my workload when I do. And someone asked earlier, how long would it take to bring back the old bone corpses, or the old in Legacy, the old version of Haven and Hearth. Killed animals used to leave behind a pile of bones that was unique per animal, and that was kind of cool. So each animal had its own skeleton, and I would love to bring that back here. I've been meaning to do so, and making an individual skeleton is not that much of work, so that can certainly be done. Wouldn't even take an evening. I think maybe 4 hours if you just do it from scratch. But the problem, if any, is that it progressively adds more to the workload for each animal than that you're going to implement from then on. Because if you set the precedent that all animals have their own unique skeleton, then all animals need to have their own unique skeleton. Blah blah. That's just an excuse. So I definitely think we should get behind this, but that's the reason, perhaps, that I've been holding off on it and not, gladly throwing myself at that task, perhaps. So I definitely think we should bring back the unique animal skeletons. Asterisk asks, where do you source your sound effects for the game at? We have an account with a sound service, Sound Snap, I think it's called, which we use. So I believe we should have reasonably. Some sounds are just blatantly stolen, like the Hydra sound from StarCraft 1, but stolen in the sense that they were added kind of as homages to those games that we have played and loved ourselves. For example, when you pull up a giant turnip in Haven, you will hear the pickup sound from Super Mario Bros. 2. Because we think that Super Mario Bros. 2 is a pretty good game. I would say underrated as a Mario game. It's actually one of the games that I really enjoyed. I really liked it. I thought it was also one of those games that was kind of still Nintendo hard. I don't know if you use that expression, but I do, Nintendo hard. Like the old Nintendo, NES games used to be Nintendo hard, and that they were actually really challenging to, look, we got bitten by mosquitoes. Or midges. How is the most common word in English for mosquito or midge? How is that a Spanish word? Why does English not have proper words for almost any natural phenomenon that I can come to think of? Obviously, there is a word. There is the old word midge, from which we get midget. I have learned when implementing midges. My first instinct was to call them mosquitoes, because that is what everyone refers to them as. But then I felt like, wait a minute, mosquito. Hablo español, señor. So I thought, that can't be right. That is not my Germanic Haven and Hearth the way I know and love it. So, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bones. We need more. So then I went and looked it up, and midge is apparently a more traditional word for some similar phenomenon. Jordan Colsey asks, could we maybe get butterfly nets, Animal Crossing style? Definitely. But I would say not Animal Crossing style. I would say Zelda, A Link to the Past style. Because there you have he does the whole, he whirls around when he uses the butterfly net. So I would love to have that effect. I think we could basically do it so that if you have a butterfly net equipped and right click to catch an insect or small animal, you can do so at a much closer range. That would actually be a good implementation of it that I think would work pretty well. So we should probably add that. I like that. It's a good idea. Thank you. I should write it down. Small con and butterfly net catch insects at range. That's excellent, sir. Thank you. Sinmofo asks, are we ever going to get the armor repair you promised months ago? Hey, that's another great one. Armor repair. That's actually awesome. I will definitely look into adding that. I had completely forgotten about that. Should definitely look into that. Jordan Cozy says, Crazy Frog happy, I think. Let's see, did I miss any questions? If I do, feel free to ask your questions again. Another complaint of Granger's was that I did not interact enough with my audience. I think, which I found funny, because do I do anything other than interacting with my audience? I suppose fumble around with my character. That's a thing I do. Finigi, he said something about Super Mario Bros. 2. I really like that discussion. Let's see. Super Mario Bros. 2 has been a game of the year for the past 3 years, though. It's been game of the year for the past 3 years, though. Has it? Really? Where? By whom? Who has said that it's the game of the year? Let's see. Hey, it's nice. We got to experience and everything. Hot damn it, these things are everywhere, and they're feisty too. I have like a bunch of ones. Ouch, they're actually pretty fierce. At least for my noobish self. See. Streaky Haddock asks or says, can we place lit candles, shields, swords, sights, etc. on grave cairns? It'd be nice to be able to commemorate people in our community in ways like that. That's actually not a terrible idea. Not sure. Zenti69 asks, beers during stream when? I think, give me a month or two. I've completely ran out of things to talk about and do, and at that point I should probably start just drinking beer. I actually want to give a shout out to my main man. What was his name? I found myself in a strange corner of YouTube the other night when I found a channel. Oh, what was his name? That was a guy who basically he was a one-trick pony. No, certainly not. He could drink alcohol in many creative ways, and the USP of his stream, or the elevator pitch for his stream, was that he basically drank beer or alcohol until he puked, and kind of like I don't know, Humans of Late Capitalism style. It felt extremely degenerate, actually. So I don't want that. Also, we should probably keep it family friendly, right? Or maybe we should. Maybe I don't really care that much, but little rabbit, we're not gonna catch it. I can certainly use a butterfly net right about now. See, dice on the table. Yeah, I like the grave cairns idea thing. Placing weapons on. Let's see, or what do we call that? Is that small bugs? Larger bugs that can be fixed. No. Is it? This is what all your where all your suggestions go to die. Small fixes, man. No. Key fixes. No, it's not a key fix. It's really a small fix. I kind of like that idea, but I also have to feel that, like, where does that idea end? Like, is it everything on grave cairns suddenly? Like, it feels like that could be the end point My inventory, Jordan Cozy, was not full. I could pick the rabbit up and then place it here and then drop the dead rabbit, put the rabbit in my inventory, ring its neck, pick up the other rabbit. Please, sir. Please. He gives me shit for nothing. Let's see. As soon as he gets in range to catch it, he does some ninja shit with his inventory. Yeah, you bet. Hoylander asks, any deep strats. You know it, bro. Any plans to implement ways to make more unique weapons, tools, etc.? I think adding unique perks and traits to tools, perhaps obtained through some muse work, quests, or some sort, would create more meaningful endgame grind for craftsmen and foragers. I could not, brother, agree more. It's one of the things that I would like to fix. I think one of the problems with it right now, or one of the reasons why we perhaps haven't acted on it, is that it's not trivial to find good, unique niches or whatever for weapons in the game as it is, and that would, we would probably need like a little bit more depth perhaps to the systems, to have kind of the fighting system, kind of the we should make a belt of some sort before we could really go, full hogwash with that. But I think it's a good idea. That being said, and I actually have a fairly extensive system planned for it, where you basically, I imagine that you can make like a hilt, like each weapon, each kind of like platonic ideal form of a weapon, say like the basic club or whatever, has a number of components, and then you can add the components individually. Like, a club perhaps wouldn't have that much, but like you could maybe add spikes to it, you could add, and then you would generate a full name for that, depending on, what you use for it, blah, blah, blah. So I think we could definitely add a lot of depth to the weapon cycles, and I think it would also kind of fit with the lore of the game, with having the cool enchanted weapons, or maybe not enchanted, but at least like rune carved weapons of potent rune carved weapons would be cool. Here we go. Wishbones aplenty. There we go. These just count as bone, right? Yep. Yep, they sure do. Let's just roast some of this shit up. So we need to get ourselves a... Didn't we build a cauldron last time? I thought we did, but apparently not, so we need to make a cauldron. Ike Dragon says, you should check Mount and Blade Bannerlord weapon crafting system. I'm sure you can get some inspiration from that because it looks very good. Bannerlord. Oh, the Mount and Blade Bannerlord. Where do I make an efficient note of that? Mount and Blade Bannerlord. Make a new file. Mount and Blade Bannerlord. See. I had never heard of Bannerlord. I'm always the last to the party when it comes to new games. I don't know, like I've complained about it before, like no one ever tells me when cool games are released. I don't know where people, get their infos. By the way, really sorry to hear that Total Biscuit passed away. Really, really sorry to hear that. I don't read much gaming journalism, but I had Total Biscuit interviewed me in Cologne, Germany, and this was like in 2011, concerning and about Salem, and that was, he did a good interview, gave us a really fair shake, I thought, I just remember him as being. The video is still on YouTube, by the way, so you can, if you enjoy the fusion of Jorb and Total Biscuit, you can check that out. And that really, yeah, it was really, really kind of strange to hear that he had passed away. I was kind of sad about that, actually. You know, we all shall go the way of the worms, you know, but yeah, touching for some reason. I mean, especially since he was so relatively young, 33-ish, so the Christ age, so it's really, yeah, special. Oh, that crow stole something, or magpie, sorry, it stole something from me. What had I dropped? I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, it was really, I kind of touched by that, actually, that he passed away. It was a bit of a shame. I lost a good friend earlier, just like the night after I did the first stream for the year. Like not a close friend or anything, but like a friend that I considered really like a good friend. Not a close friend, but a good friend. And he passed away. It was also young, also like freak accident. Like obviously Total Biscuit had cancer, but a freak accident. It's kind of strange. It reminds you of your own mortality and whatnot. What are we doing? Fumbling, I suppose. Let's go get some more bones while we are still young. Sorry for the loss. Life is short. Yeah, like big up, bro. It was actually the first time that I lost. You know, I've lost like old relatives before, but with them it was always, you know, expected. Like they've lived good lives, good long lives. Most of them, you know, died in relatively healthy stages, like not that many like terminal, progressive ill diseases or whatever. So then it was always more kind of expected, but yeah, when it just comes out of the blue like that, you know, you have to wonder, you know, what the Lord's plan with all of that was. Like why did He allow that to happen? Not for us to know. Ask Kinshra Slave asks, are all devs mediocre at their own games? Probably. Like, you know, you tend to spend a lot more time under the hood of the car than actually driving it. So I definitely qualify as mediocre at my own game. Which is why I need you and all your awesome feedback to help me develop the game and point out where it lacks. Jordan Cozy asks, in addition to the natural cave galleys and rooms, I think he means galleries, right? Inside of one of the ancient chests, it would be nice to get a sword hilt, which could be attached and then gilded with one gem. Absolutely. The only thing I would say there is that I don't actually like, or you know, I'm not too fond of, what shall we say, items of artifice placed by natural means in the world. I think most items of artifice should be player created. I like that aspect of the game. Dungeons are, you know, an edge case, but I think it's more acceptable there. And you know, plus we can at least imagine that the various dungeon creatures have, you know, some level of primitive culture. But I think most items of more, you know, of more qualified nature should be player created, as the general rule, at least. So Mr. Softener asks, how is the client rework coming along? Again, Lofter's table more than mine, so I can't really say for sure. But last time I asked, it sounded as if he was making some decent strides forward. Basically, my understanding is that his immediate object right now is to, let's see, he has the GL lists, and now he wants to, so basically he has a list of GL commands, and now he wants to actually execute those. So he has draw information that he's gathered up from all the various places it needs to come from, and now he needs to write the code to actually draw or execute those draw commands. So that's where he's at. And but you know, it sounded as if as if he were making progress. So I'm just hoping at the end of this that we're gonna see some payout on all the stuff that he's done with the client, because he's been working on that for the better part of a year now, or it's actually it's been more than a year. So I would really hope and like it if all the changes ended up putting us at least in a significantly better spot to do optimizations and improve the performance of the game, because I think that was one of the things that, in my opinion, held the game back during the start of the last world. My perception was that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but my perception was that a lot of the PvP interactions that were happening, a lot of them got kind of cucked a little bit by the relatively poor performance of the client, especially in bigger fight scenes and stuff like that. So that's the reason why we prioritized the client performance. Mr. Softener says, visit a big city. I love CF, but I'd like to see what happened to other places. I'd love to. If anyone has a big city they'd like me to go visit, I would not at all mind. I could probably warp there with my actual Jorb character if you want to show me something. So, and if you're then, of course, happy about it being displayed on the stream. Ladybug. Oh no! All right. Ike Dragon says, I'm not sure if this was asked before or not, but will the client rework include more graphical fidelity capability, e.g. dynamic lights, ambient occlusion, etc.? It would certainly put us in a better spot to add things like that and add more graphics settings. And we've been meaning to add. There are a bunch of graphics settings that we talked about adding. Like, for example, there's a hard limit right now to like 3 light sources in the game. And there could easily be a setting for something like that, and so we'd love to add more like that. And another thing that we've talked about is like a technique that I've been reading a lot about is various forms of dynamic level of detail for rendering larger, more complex scenes. So basically, you would have an algorithm that basically strips away vertices from meshes and creates a lower level of detail objects for hopefully for easier rendering. So stuff like that is things we are discussing, things that we that I could see. Okay, so I'm never going to catch that mole. Why am I chasing it? This is me fumbling, boys and girls. This is me fumbling my way through the game. Numenutaren says, if I recall correctly, when I first heard of the 3 light sources limit, I googled around and found a video that explained that light effects are one of the most processing intensive. In fact, sup? Just chilling, bro. That is true. Light processing can certainly be expensive. It depends on what you mean by it, though. Just wanted to say thanks for this awesome game, says a nice, kind stranger writing up to us. Thank you, sir. What's it say? You're tearing me apart, Lisa. Of course. Thank you, sir. I assume you're watching the stream. The dab. Bam. Also, sup, guys from Community Fair. I'll do the step dance for you. Dude, I'm dying. Am I dying? How am I dying? I'm not dying. It's just a bunch of leeches. They're all bloated. Take care. Bye. Bye, guy. Bye, Sir Dinglewit, or whatever his name was. Berto. Yes, light processing can certainly be expensive. Depends on what you're doing. Like if you're attempting to render shadows for everything, then oh boy, that's going to be expensive. Like if you actually which would be very cool, obviously, if like you actually cast dynamic shadows as you like walked around a fire, for example. It could be really cool, or in a cave or whatever. But that is extremely expensive and hard to do. So it's not hard to do; it's trivial, or it's easy to implement, but hard to do well performance-wise. So that would be cool if we could find techniques to do that better. or do more of that to some extent, or at least. Hoylander says, I posted a thread about meaningfully differentiating curios through the introduction of ancillary perks like stat boosts, higher LP per hour at the cost of wounds, etc., which I recall you responded somewhat favorably to. Is that still being considered? I love that idea, actually. Ideas in that vein. I've had similar thoughts myself. I've also had thoughts, in the vein that you're very much bringing up there and talking about, like for example, if you had a curio that when it completed, it added something to some other set of curios, like it boosted the study time of other curios in your inventory and stuff like that. Could be kind of fun if you could add some game to it, so that it was kind of important, or so that it could matter more, or so that curios could be more differentiated, quite simply. Because right now curios are a bit one-dimensional. Basically, I mean, they have a couple of different values, but it all kind of breaks down to LP per hour per slot, I guess. I think if we could differentiate those more, I think the FEP system, at least in theory, it's a bit broken right now. Apart from it not working, it works great. I think the FEP system is more interesting there. Does more interesting things. So, that being said, I also kind of like that you don't have to spend your every waking hour thinking about what curios you're studying. I kind of there's some aspect of the kind of just fire and forget thing that I like about it. That doesn't matter that much. So come to Brodgar. Go to Brodgar. How do I get to Brodgar? See. My mouse wheel is Fumar. Yep, I think I got most there. Again, if I missed your questions, feel free to. Numinotarn says study table is possibly the best addition in the history of H&H. Yeah, I like study tables well enough as well. I think it's kind of, if you can't beat them, join them type of thing, where everyone and their mother is using a bot for something. I think it's pretty much a knee-jerk reaction to try to ban that or try to work against that. I think people using bots are often trying to tell you something, and that you have an unhealthy mechanic in your game. Not always. I mean, I'm not saying that bots can never be a problem or can never be a problem in and of themselves, because I think they can be, but oftentimes I think bots are symptoms of a problem more than a problem in and of themselves. Boom, boom, boom. So we lack one bone. We lack one bone. Well, isn't that a tragedy? Yeah, questing was also a lot of fun. I felt, especially early Last World, I felt that questing added a lot in terms of just, there was actually, a reason to do something. You could keep playing for as long as you wanted. You didn't just have to log off to 8 curios or whatever. I really enjoyed, but at the same time, it also wasn't, trivially bottable or whatever. I really liked that part about questing. I thought it was added a lot. I think we could do similar things, or more things in that vein with dungeons as well. Should probably add a new dungeon at some point, but we've been really keeping the patches, as you've probably noticed, kind of smallish. We will continue to do so for the foreseeable future, while Frederick works on the client rendering rewrite. Let's see. Gannica says, replace curios with learning bar for every skill. People often suggest having experience bar for every attribute and skill. I don't really like that. There's at least a dimension of the generality of curiosities that I like. I'm not saying that there could perhaps not be specialization along some vector or dimension, but there are at least aspects of the. See if I can move the camera down a bit. You see my beautiful face back as I face more as I lean back. It's, yeah, at least the aspects of the generality there that I like. Troll Dungeon says Yoga's Mayan. Troll Dungeon would be awesome. Though I'm not sure, given how much problem people seem to be having with the Bat Cave, that anyone would ever be able to get through a Troll Dungeon. But yeah, it would be really cool to have Troll Dungeons. How did you find the Bat Caves? Were they just easy to steamroll over for all the veterans among you, and completely impossible to clear for others? Did you find them to be at a good level? Should we make future dungeons? I mean, we're going to make an easy dungeon for the next one. I've already promised that. We're probably going to do an ant dungeon. But where would you like us to take that? Would you like more, you know, harder dungeons, easier dungeons, bigger dungeons, smaller dungeons? Also, how did you like the rewards? I heard someone say that they were a bit underwhelming for the Bat dungeons. TrollXH says Bat Caves are actually really easy with 2 okay characters at the moment, and all you do is spam one move, which is full circle, and you sit on oak stance and don't even use defenses. Lol. Yeah, that's probably true, but that's more of a comment on the combat system, I think, than a comment on dungeons. Yeah, actually, fun story, true story, I actually had a dungeon appear right underneath my base. It's probably a consequence of how we spawn them, in that they are probably likely to appear in trafficked areas. But I couldn't get past like the second room when doing it solo. There were like 2 vampire bats there, and I couldn't take that. I'm too fumbly to take that. There we go, I think that's our 40th bone. That's our 41st bone. 41st bone. Is this base abandoned? Can we find good loots? Let's see. Grimshard says deserts, palm trees, coconuts, tar fields, maybe like, well, oh, even got a brick wall up. Sparrow's Gourd. Brick wall up and everything. Really cool. Let's take a walk around this. Let's fumble around Sparrow's Gourd. Sparrow's Gourd. That's certainly a name. Hatiox says, Dogman when? That's a good question. Certainly. So I can't pick up rabbits because they are owned by Sparrow's Gourd. I'm not sure that is as it should be. Little John 531 says maybe dungeon where stronger foes more than numbers. That's a good point. We could probably add, yeah, that's a good point. It's a hard balance to strike in that if we add just single big dangerous creatures, they're kind of easy to swarm. So you probably have a point in that there needs to be some limit to how many people can enter a dungeon like that. But a limit like that is also problematic because that leads to a situation where you can just, you know, pop down 5 alts in the starting room and then basically clear that dungeon at your leisure. We already have that problem with beaver dungeons because people can block them with arms and stuff. So I'm not sure where you feel all that leaves us. Amanda H&H, hello Amanda, says the Credo quest finishing treasure is a good one. Finishing treasure. Oh, right. The reward in the Bat dungeons that allows you to finish a quest. Exactly. I get what you mean now. Finally able to finish that mystic one with it, lol. I like the dungeons a lot. I think after the next easier one, it should be another hard one. That's a good strategy right there. Do an easy one, do a hard one. One of the ones that I'm really looking forward to is I want to do one for seals and walruses. That could be really fun. I'm thinking like, you know, a huge like block of ice, like bobbing around in the oceans somewhere, or you know, the rivers, lakes, whatever. Wolf dungeon, wolves would be awesome. I'm gonna try to do wolves before the year is out. We'll see what happens, but really, you know, I mean, the models are done and everything. Streaky Haddock says, please no seal walrus dungeon. My fingers can't take it. He's referring then to the seal finger disease that you can catch when butchering seals and or walruses. But perhaps we could have as a reward in that dungeon a really, really good cure for seal finger. I mean, after all, the walruses themselves have to cure themselves of their own disease one way or another, right? Altiox says, Haven and Hearth Battle Royale when? So Battle Royale is where you, like, what is that? It's kind of like a Hunger Games scenario where you kind of put people together in a confined environment and then they're supposed to kill each other? Or so are you asking for like a dedicated game mode where you can just basically fight with one another? I think that could actually be cool if the combat system were better or whatever. It's exactly Hunger Games, yeah. Yeah, that could be fun. I wouldn't actually mind, you know, varying game modes like that. Like, I could see I mean, you could, you know, potentially fairly easily just build like a, I don't know, capture the flag game mode or whatever for Haven. And that could be fun. I'm not sure it's worth our dev time, but, you know, you could do things like that. Or, you know, a Defense of the Ancients scenario, or what do you call the MOBAs, right? MOBAs. You could turn it into a MOBA. Hey, what do you know? We found a bunch of hardwood leaves. Quality 12. Okay, so let's go dig up some clay, make a cauldron, jump back home, and then we can make the study table desk thingy. I think that's going to be pretty awesome. Excellent goal for tonight's stream. Should leave us in a significantly better position last time, or next time, when we keep fumbling around with our character. I kid. Maneuvers, let's see. Hoylander asks, just once more, what is your view on foraging as a persistent trade as the world ages? Is it meant to be a boosting factor in the early days of the world to give you a head start with some good rare curios and in effect be replaced by more developed trades later on, or is the current neutered state of foraging probably lack of content intended to be added later? A bit of both, a little from column A and a little from column B. I think that foraging should certainly play a bigger role in the early game than in the late game. You know, as you develop your base, that needs to be meaningful, and you should get better produce from that. And like, I think all the like central key industries, whatever, should basically be, you know, settled industries, so to speak. But that being said, I don't think that foraging should ever, you know, be completely irrelevant, because I think foraging adds something positive to the game when it's not just being botted, of course, in that it gives you an incentive to leave your base, to find rare resources and stuff. One of the problems, and we've talked about this on previous streams as well, is that the quality level of the foraged produce is massively left behind by the quality increases, the natural quality increases of the more, you know, finished products, or of the, you know, what shall we call them, the more industrial type production industries. And, you know, so the quality on those increases, whereas foraging is determined entirely by the map, or, you know, by the intrinsic foraging qualities that we've built into the map. I think there are ways where we could improve on that. For example, we could have industrial quality in one way or another influence the quality of forged stuff. That could be one thing that one could do. We could, for example, have, like, say you can make a metal sickle that you can use to harvest herbs or forageables, and then, you know, the sickle influences the quality of the herbs somewhat. That could be, you know, a thought. Or, you know, you could perhaps, I don't know, enact the realm blessing, and, you know, do something to increase the quality of foraged produce around you. So those are things that I think you can do. But I think, and that holds true for fishing as well. I think the problems that they have, one of them at least, is that, you know, they are kind of intrinsically weak, a lot of them, fishing and foraging, and this is, you know, a lot for historical reasons. They have been overpowered at times, and it's really easy to make them overpowered. It's really easy to make them overpowered to the point where people build like huge walls to wall off swamps, to just basically have a forage bot check the swamp every so often. And it's unfortunate that we don't have any quality of wood. I'm not sure the wood quality matters, does it? We'll find out. Yeah, so basically, so wood quality does not matter for culverts. Check. Trollex H&H says, well, almost all the foraged items are useless regardless of quality. That's probably true, and I think that's another problem in and of itself. Jordan Cozy says, fishing could be buffed if there was a chance to catch big catches, which have FEP comparable to high-end cheeses. I agree. That could certainly be a viable, you know, line of investigation to make fishing more relevant. I agree, quite simply. I definitely think that's not a bad idea at all. More rare catches, more like, you know, big, strange. The plural of fish is fish, right? More grand fish catches. Great idea. I think that could definitely be good and useful. Probably look over fishing in general. I think there are a lot of like small things that could be better dispositioned. I think basically lure catching seems kind of useless compared to angling, because when you angle or whatever we call it, you catch basically random fishes randomly. So basically you get better payout from that than you do from lure fishing, and that's not as it should be, because lure fishing is more technologically advanced, in my humble opinion. So let's eat a little. And break these suckers up. Probably level up some of my stats, right? Boost this a little and get some more exploration going. Yeah, I came back to the character after I played it last time, and I found out that I hadn't been studying much at all. So that definitely is going to be alleviated right now, because we are going to build ourselves, when we've fumbled through to that point, we're going to build ourselves a study table. Yeah, awesome. Let's see. Mr. Software says, the early game needs to last longer. Within a month, we're mostly set. I don't know. How long should it take? It's an open question. I'm tempted to agree with you. Like, the early game probably should last longer, but I don't know. There also seems like there's you know, diminishing returns in just extending the early games, quote unquote. And I know what everyone's going to, there's a certain crowd that's just going to say, oh, it's just, the problem is just that you have these infinite stat gains. Well, without the infinite stat gains, then, we don't have anything, I guess. Like, what is there to do at all? What do you do in other games? Like, what games can you play for months on end and they're still as fun as they were the first day you picked them up? What games are there? What mechanics do they have? What do I need to implement to make that work? Like, I'll implement anything. Any good idea, I'll implement. No questions asked. Or, obviously I'm going to ask questions, but, you get the idea. What kind of content do we need? What kind of, what end game content haven't we explored that we could explore? I think freeform building is a huge thing for me. I think that would make me stay in the game a lot longer. If I could do, and probably, easier. Oh, right, we need to wait for that to boil. Oh, goodness, it's useless having a clay cauldron. Let's see. The forging provided, says Hoylander, more of a means to provide newer players with useful items that also stay useful in larger quantities. I think one of the things that forging could do well for the game is to provide noobs with things that they can, you know, sell successfully to more established players. Like, for example, I thought that the ants filled that function for some time. I noticed that I could sell those at the community fair and get a good price for them. So I thought, you know, things like that, I think foraging could probably do well. Altiox says, do you enjoy the early game, and would you say that the early game is significantly different from late game? Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's fairly different. Like, you certainly enter into a different game mode, but I mean, at the same time, the game is itself at all times, so it's not like you're suddenly playing a completely different, vastly different game or anything. I mean, you're always playing the awesome thing that is Haven and Heart. But, I mean, you certainly have other problems, other experiences, whatever, when you're established. But I think we've done, you know, some good progress towards making, you know, the what shall we say, the permanent establishment of you and your base. I think we've, you know, made some strides toward alleviating the problem there, in, you know, credo quests and in credos and in dungeons, and, you know, that, and just other reasons to end quests, and just other reasons to move out and about, get out in the world, see things, make friends, influence people, all that good stuff. And I think we want more of that. I think one of the problems is the autarky that you know, it appears at some point when you have everything and you're entirely self-sufficient in and with everything. You can craft everything yourself. You never need to trade for anything. You blah blah blah. I think at that point, and also, of course, I think if we could make PvP work better, I think that could be a huge driver for you know, end game content or whatever. I think that's one of the things that kept Legacy fresh for as long as it did, was that, you know, or rather the one thing that kept Legacy fresh for as long as it did was that it had like relevant PvP or whatever you want to call it. I think, you know, obviously Legacy still does things in terms of, you know, disposition of combat and whatnot that we haven't been able to replicate in the New Haven. So I think Legacy probably arguably still does some things better. Waylander asks, are you happy with how Credo Quest stacking works right now? Yeah, I'm not like 100% happy maybe, but I'm also not entirely dissatisfied, I guess. So who do I need to kill? What do I need to do? Oh, I need to probably discover glue in order to make a study desk. And we're going to do that as soon as a watched pot never boils. Here we have an ample illustration of this. A watched pot will never boil. So let's go out and about, gather some more nonsense. Let's see. Would you say that it's problematic that in an ideal scenario, this is Altiox speaking, the world would never reset and thus new players would never get to experience the early game? That's a good question. That is certainly a good question. There's certainly a special feeling whenever we do a world reset. Like, it's always kind of fun, in my own opinion, to open the floodgates and let all the nerds into, you know, a pristine, brand new world where, you know, it's all possibility basically. Nothing has been set in stone. Nothing has been established. Everyone, you know, the playing field is level, all that stuff. So, you know, a world reset is a fun time. It's fun to do a world reset, you know, usually the energy levels are high. People come back to the forums. We, you know, get a, you know, resurgence in interest, etc., etc. I think it's natural, of course, that people burn out after a while. And honestly, I also don't want like people to, oh no, to be like, I'm not sure I want to contribute to like a culture where people are, you know, complete, you know, neats, just sitting at home playing Haven and Hearth all day instead of like, you know, at the expense and cost perhaps of a good and well balanced life otherwise. But so I think it's natural that you want to take a break from the game at some point. Kif808 asks, would you guys ever consider bringing back wind and wind chimes from early Legacy days? Yeah, we've actually talked about that a fair amount. Like, yeah, I don't want to bring back perhaps the wind swords, at least not in the retarded form that they were originally implemented. But that being said, I also would not necessarily mind implementing wind as a curiosity that could be harvested from, the heath terrain would be the obvious candidate, because I liked the kind of unique distinction that it added to the heath terrain in Legacy, and that that was the place where you could find the winds blowing. I like that part, so I don't think the idea was purely terrible. Hoylander says, Kif808 says, but the wind swords look so cool. I could agree with that. I'm not entirely 100% opposed to bringing them back, but we'd have to hide that behind 1,000 credos and dungeons and stuff. I think it should be a lot more complicated to make. Wind chimes, I wouldn't mind adding back. I'm not sure they should explode and wreck people's bases and stuff, but apart from that, I wouldn't mind bringing them back. You haven't, to my knowledge, says Hoylander, locked any items or objects behind credos yet, i.e. a large forge, star, sword setup. Would you consider doing so in the future? Yeah, that's been an oft-recurring thing, or thought that we've had. We considered adding rose gold to a credo. We did add we added potter's clay to potter, so there's a unique item there. So there's a precedent set for that. And I wouldn't mind adding more. The only problem with that is developing the content for it. It takes more time. Adding a larger forge or oven or sword or whatever requires an additional resource. Oftentimes, because the things you want to add, like a unique building and whatnot, is a large piece of content like that takes at least an evening to make. So if I do that, then basically that's me, or my input for that night will be that one thing. So it's usually and perhaps unfortunately, I find myself triaging those ideas often for just lack of time in the implementation. Because if oftentimes it feels so marginal, spending a lot of time on creating a piece of content that a very small percentage of the player base will experience, oftentimes feels like a bit of a waste of resources. I realize that you can make a strong argument for things like that. There should be rewards to following specific paths. Having a high level of detail in the depths of the game as well is certainly worth something. I personally, obviously there's no better feeling than when playing a game and you find, hey, look, there's a self-seeded tree. That's awesome. We added that back just recently. When you find some obscure interaction and you realize that the devs have thought about that before, I think that's awesome. Or added some small piece of content that you could only discover through some really obscure hoops that you had to jump through. I think that's awesome. But there's certainly a balance to be struck there with spending time on the core of the game, the stuff that people are going to see and interact with every day. I think because the changes that we make to those kinds of things are the changes that I think we and the game get rewarded for. So there's a balance to be struck there. The Potter Credo, says Jordan Cozy, fucked up quality is pretty bad. Can make Q350 pots from Q10 clay. Okay, we'll make note of that. Make note of that. We'll make note of that. Potter Credo. Okay, that's not a small fix, but whatever. I'll put that for now. Little John 531 says, any plans to add more uses for rose gold, like change some recipes to use any gold rather than normal? Yeah, we actually meant to do that. I think we just didn't get to it. Yeah, definitely. There are some recipes that ask for a precious metal, and I think rose gold works as a precious metal at least. Also liked adding more alloys. Liked it for the fact of adding like new variable building materials. If nothing else, wouldn't mind adding more alloys just for that reason alone. But also wouldn't mind adding specific reasons to craft specific alloys and stuff. Beepity 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 beep. Mr. Softener says visit a place before the stream ends. Yeah, sure thing, bro. If we find the time, we'll see what happens. I need to complete the study desk first. Grimshard says chemistry and liquid craft. Yeah, I actually found. I think I have like a collection of like 3 or 4 threads on the subject of potions and or alchemy, and I'm not entirely unexcited about it. So I can certainly see. I really, one of the things I loved about Morrowind, if you've ever played that game, was the alchemy system, or I suppose Bethesda have similar systems in other of their games as well. I really enjoyed it in Morrowind, however. Thought it was really fun and cool there. One of the things that I really enjoyed about Morrowind, rather than, Oblivion and Skyrim later on, was that Morrowind still retained a lot more degrees of freedom. Like you could make levitating potions, and you can make these absurd potions that allowed you to speed run the game in like 10 minutes and blah blah blah. If you did abuse the game in the right way, I thought that was a lot of fun. Or one of the kind of like cute and fun things. Holy Cow says alchemy in Morrowind was broken beyond belief. Yes, I'm sure. I mean, of course it was, but I think that's what I liked about it. I mean, I like that you could make these absurd levitating potions and stuff. Thought that was kind of fun. Tiger RG245 asks, "Did you see the 5-minute Morrowind speedrun?" Yeah, I think I did. I think I did see. I've at least seen Morrowind speedruns done with I don't know what's the boss called. How can I have forgotten that? In the lava, the ashland thing. Yeah, I don't know. You just run there, kill him in 5 seconds with a levitating potion, and blah blah blah. Yeah, I've seen that. Jordan Cozy says one of the perks of having a standalone one-player game. I could not agree with you more. I've often thought to myself, quietly, that I think it's as kind of sad as that is. I think it's probably true that Haven would probably have been like a bigger success or whatever had we made it a single player game, or like a co-op LAN game, or something like that. I think it would probably have sold more and been a bigger success than it is as an MMO, because I think there's a huge value in it being able to for the player to control the game world themselves and blah blah blah. And I noticed that. So that there's definitely an argument that you can make for that. And I'm also kind of jelly every time I, hear of the problems of single player game developers. Like they don't actually, their games basically don't have to actually work because, in a single player game you can always, just. Like in a single player game, if the player creates a problem for himself to some extent, you can always just tell him don't do that. Like if if the game is giving you a hard time for one reason, I mean, assuming we're not talking about actual bugs or whatever, but exploits and abuses of that nature. Like if you don't want to abuse the game, then set rules for yourself. Like if you're only ruining the play experience for yourself. But in an MMO, we're dealing with a different beast. Streaky Haddock asks, what were the plans with Memories of Pain? The string of text seems to hint at something interesting, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to do anything. I can only confirm that Memories of Pain is working exactly as intended. That is all I will say about it. I believe was also Blizzard's only comment to, like, there was a little strange button in the Diablo 2 interface that you could click a lot, and no one was ever sure what it actually did. But yeah, I can confirm that Memories of Pain works exactly as intended. Yeah. Jordan Cosi says, time spending game as a one-player game would drop those. Legacy is still the second you can solo a bear. That's probably true. That's probably true as well. Or, I don't know. What do you mean, actually? Time spent in game as a one-player game would drop, though. Legacy is still the second game. Well, sure. I mean, definitely. I mean, I'm not saying that the MMO aspect doesn't add something. Of course it does. It makes the game very unique in a way that I love. I mean, this was always the point of us building Haven, was to build an MMO. Like, that was the, you know, key point of it. Streaky Haddock says, so basically it just exists to freak people out over simulated panic. I think, yeah, my cauldron is probably boiling. Let's go check it. Yeah, on that note, without giving any further comments on Memories of Pain, I definitely think that pandemics would be awesome. We should definitely add some and what do I do with this junk? What do I do with this junk? I'm fumbling now. I'm fumbling now for sure. And now I'm gonna go make a crate, and it's gonna take forever. Yeah, a little bit of plague never hurt anyone, right? Wow, Dryad. Yeah, common cold, exactly. That's awesome. We should add that. And more wounds is always fun. I like more wounds. I think more wounds and, you know, more depth to the wound system is always fun. For example, I considered the other day, like, if you have 3 different insect bites, they could, you know, add together to become like an allergic hyperreaction or something, and that could be fun. Do. Boom. All right, let's boil some bones. So yeah, I've been talking, as I said earlier, definitely kind of wanting to make it so that you can boil glue from hides as well, but also don't want to devalue my precious bone market. Where did I put the chicken bones? I don't know. This is me fumbling. This is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm fumbling for sure. Oh, come on. Where did I put him? Please tell me where I put him. Where did I put him? There we go. There they are. God damn it. I'm fumbling now. Mr. Softener says, you don't want to devalue the bone market. For the record, I am, you know, saying that tongue in cheek. I don't really care that much about the bone glue market. You don't want to devalue the bone market, yet you nerfed the blueberry market. Did I nerf the blueberry market as well? By making blueberries plantable, or were blueberries an interesting and relevant commodity before that? Asterisk asks, do you have any thoughts on how to encourage more in-game trading, especially for the lower-tiered players? Currently, the most valuable commodity a noob can provide is iron bars due to metal spiraling. I wish I had more ideas. If you have any ideas, feel free to send them my way. I think that's one of the harder challenges that we've had. I think this is one of the things, incidentally, that I think Legacy had, you know, did some things right. Like, for example, bricks were a relevant currency in Legacy because you were a lot more limited in terms, like, A, brick walls were better, I suppose, and B, you were, I don't need quality wood for making a, gosh darn, so bricks were a relevant commodity that noobs could make and trade, and I think that was interesting and fun. And I can probably see your point that we have Audio Smurf, you can toggle that. We added a toggle to display quality a while back. So if I toggle that, see display quality on items, you'll have a quality display on all items. I just don't like playing with it. So I mean, again, that's one of the things that could break the autarky of the game. Would be, you know, more trading opportunities for noobs. I think that would be a great idea and a good and worthy cause. It's just a little bit. I'm just not sure I have like the patent solution for how to, you know, make stuff more relevant, basically. But that certainly doesn't mean one couldn't think about that problem and attempt to solve it. Alright, getting there, one board at a time. Alright, let's just bring any old wood. Oh wait, are those decayed logs? Are those actual Mirkwood logs that decayed from real logs? They may just be. Let's inspect them for quality. Doesn't seem like it. Maybe they didn't have quality, as it were. But these were probably, I suspect that these decayed into Mirkwood. We made it so the logs decay into Mirkwood logs. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Mr. Softner says, recipes that involve items from both late game and early game can help give value to newbies. Yeah, I agree. Can get behind that point, like ant farms, I think, are a good example. Jordan Cozy says, aside from grubs, can you add more items in the stumps again? Yeah, that would be a good idea. Like, the stumps could be a lot more fun. So you should, that's a good point. Drunken Jacob says, we have kingdoms, maybe some religions would be nice too, sacrifices, praying, etc. Yeah, definitely. We have planned a system where you can basically interact with local deities of sort, like local, you know, personal conscious beings in nature, like, you know, quest givers and other things, like perhaps the king of a particular dungeon or the like could be interacted with, and where you could, you know, worship them and say, you know, so basically improve them and develop. And this is a point for quest givers in general, I think, is that it would be really cool if you could develop your relationship with particular quest givers, and then not just develop your relationship with them, but also develop them, you know, level them up by helping them, etc., etc. I think stuff like that could lead to a lot more dynamism in terms of yeah, just in terms of how the game plays and such. Ike Dragon says, what if we had a special fisherman's boat where instead of cargo it has a special fish stockpile in which fish automatically goes when you catch something? Perhaps this could be achieved with a normal rowboat when object control objects will be implemented. I'm not protesting, but like, I mean, what's the point there? Do you just want to be able to fish and just look the other way and while the boat fills up on its own accord with fish? I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong, but like it is a bit strange. Like the desire to kind of want to have things for free or whatever is a bit strange. Like, we're playing a game after all. Shouldn't we be playing the game? Like, should we really? I mean, at the same time, it's not like I don't see the point of wanting automation of, especially recurring, you know, boring, mundane tasks, or tasks that become mundane and boring when you do them, when they recur a lot. So another subject we've touched on before, I'm sure. Should probably add little signs for these so that I have any idea. Probably don't need that many dandelions on my study table. Gonna put all the curiosities on my study table. Gonna fill it up. Jordan Colsey says, Tiger asks, is pickling still an idea? Pickling is most definitely still an idea. Jordan Colsey said, what did he say now? He said, Would you mind making post boxes 3x3 instead of 2x3? We made them small because we didn't want them to be used like as regular containers. We didn't want them to compete for, you know, being efficient regular containers. I guess 3x3 could be acceptable, and I think, you know, you make a good point in that it would be nice if the gifts could fit into the post boxes. So I'm not entirely set against that. I'd quite like to have wearable pets, like rats, chickens, or stuff you could... Yeah, I actually, one of the things that I implemented first when we started rebuilding the new 3D Haven was a raven that can sit on your shoulder, and we should add that to the game quite simply. And I think with birds especially, it would be cool to have like a bird of prey that you can do what it's called, falconeering with. That could be really fun. More animated hats. I'm all for the animated hats. I think the animated hats that we did add were quite badass. Creepers asks, what do you think about tool durability for inf cycle and for reason to find new res all the time? I don't know. Decay is not, you know... It's hard for me to get excited about an idea that is, you know, fundamentally kind of rooted in decay. You know, I don't know. Enforcing the same grind over and over again is, I mean, herder, that's what you're already doing with the FEP and blah blah systems. Maybe it is, blah, maybe you have a point, blah blah, but still, I think you need to be a little bit cautious at least with just enforcing looped gameplay. Especially when it's enforced. Like, you know, if you don't like leveling up your character, you can always stop doing it, but if your tools break, you know, the second they touch... This is one of the things that I don't like about the new Zelda game, like Breath of the Wild, is that, you know, okay, so you get a cool weapon reward, but you can't actually, you don't want to use it because it's a toothpick and breaks the second you touch anything with it. Mr. Softness asks, thoughts on more geographical exclusivity. Say, have tin be far more common on one side of the map. It would help with the need to travel and trade more. Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. That's actually not a bad idea at all now that I think about it. Like, more of a distinct locality to certain resources like that could certainly be interesting. I mean, if anything, it's kind of the problem, I suppose, is that some of those resources are kind of crucial. Like, you need them. Like, you need iron, for example, I assume, if you're going to advance in the game. So, yeah, it's not entirely sure what to think about that. Tiger says, iron spiraling is good because it gives low-quality iron a value for the entire world. So we need more mechanics like that. Yeah, definitely. I think infinite sinks for various things is... certainly, or can certainly be a way to encourage economic activity surrounding the things for which you add infinite sinks. All right, with that, everyone, we've already ran more than 2 hours, so I think we're going to end. Our study desk is now, our glorious study desk is now finished, and we're going to close the wall up here so that it will be at least a crime of vandalism required to get to it. So this was awesome. We got some, even despite our fumbling, we got some work done here. I think we advanced our character from last time. We didn't get to visit someplace, but we'll try to do that next time. Really enjoy this. It was a lot of fun. And Tiger says, cat gold spiraling, good for golden cats. That is a great idea. What's the problem here? Why can't I build this? Yeah, a bunch of you are waiting for me at the CF. I'm sorry about that. I should have gone there earlier. I just wanted to finish the study desk was all, and we did that. And we did go to the, I don't want to study my fair, brilliant emerald. I don't want that on no study table. I'll put the ants on the table instead. Jordan Colsey says, last question, controller support? Controller support, what do you mean by that? Like having a game pad for the game, or what are you talking about? What are you talking about? For movement, a gamepad, or is that what we're talking about? I don't know I guess like that's a thing you could do as a custom build if you really want it. Like you could get some. I don't think it would be. Okay, Xbox controller, awesome. Like I don't think it's anything we're gonna rush to implement, but it's also something that I think could be perfectly feasible to do with a custom client. Grimshard says, well, thank you, sir. It was most enjoyable. Till next time, have yourself a great rest of the day. Peace and love, Jorb. Thank you, Grimshard. Peace and love to all y'all. This was a lot of fun. It was a bit impromptu, as I'm, useless at planning these things. As I fumble through Haven, so I fumble through life. I suppose that's one of the things that you could say. And so it's perhaps part of a reflection on my nature that I fumble around. But this was a lot of fun. I got to show you some Boats of Skye. I got to show you some Haven. We got the glorious study desk built. And this will put us in a great position for our next stream, as we will have a fair amount of learning points. Maybe to engage one of these neat little credos seem appealing to me. I don't know. We'll see what we do. One thing is certain, and that is that we will fumble again next month, when we will do the June stream. And I will try to announce that a little bit beforehand, and I will try to perhaps not do it on the last day of the month. But anyway, May has been good for me. I hope May has been good for you as well. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and yeah, we'll do it again in June. It was a lot of fun. Thank you all for all your questions, and thank you for playing Haven. And yeah, rate, comment, and subscribe. Smash that like button, y'all. I can only agree with Jordan Cole's sentiment on that. Thank you all so much. Have a good evening, good rest of your evening or day or whatever it is. Yeah, enjoy everything, and I'll see you soon. Stay safe in there. Bye, guys. Bye, guys.